holiday message ahead of a trip to Nantucket, Massachusetts for the holiday weekend.
As we give thanks for what we have, we also keep in our hearts those who have lost, and those who have lost so much.
The President and First Lady also visited a Coast Guard station on Nantucket to convey Thanksgiving greetings virtually to service members around the world and chat with personnel on duty there. Scientists are raising the alarm about a new variant of the COVID-19 virus, which has been spreading in South Africa. NPR's Martin Costi reports on efforts to track it.
Researchers say the variant is remarkable for the number of mutations, twice as many as the Delta variant had, and the speed with which it's outcompeting other versions of the virus in samples from the region of South Africa that includes Johannesburg. It's not known yet whether the mutations make it more infectious or whether it causes more severe disease, but authorities in the UK are not taking chances. Starting Friday, they're temporarily banning flights from 6 countries in southern Africa. The World Health Organization has scheduled an emergency meeting Friday. If it concludes this is a variant of concern, it will likely be named after the Greek letter nu. Martin Costi, NPR News.
France's Interior Minister is calling on Britain, Belgium, and Germany to do more to help France address illegal migration and human trafficking. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports at least 27 migrants drowned in the English Channel Wednesday when their small boat made a rubber deflated.
The migrants, who were mostly from Iraq, were trying to get to Britain, where they believe they have a better chance of getting jobs. Fisherman Charles Devos found some of their bodies. He spoke on French television.
Récupérer 6 corps à la dérive.
There were 6, he says. One woman was pregnant, and there was a young guy around 17. It's heartbreaking. For the last 15 years, migrants have been coming to the north of France to attempt the crossing. French and British officials blame each other and smugglers, but war and misery in Africa and the Middle East is propelling the flow. British and French officials say 32,000 people have attempted to cross this year. Wednesday's tragedy was the biggest loss of life so far. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
A week and a half after heavy rains caused extensive damage in the Pacific Northwest, forecasters say more wet weather is on the way. Weather watchers warning about what they call atmospheric rivers, large plumes of moisture over the Pacific and into the Northwest. It could bring an additional 3 inches of rain to some spots recently hit by flooding. National Weather Service officials were calling for periods of heavy rain as the first series of systems begins moving across the region. While U.S. financial markets are closed for the Thanksgiving holiday, global markets were open today and mostly higher. Stocks rose in London, Tokyo, Frankfurt, and Hong Kong. U.S. markets open for holiday short trading session tomorrow. This is NPR.
This story about why it's taken so long for it's called a protein subunit vaccine. A new kind of COVID-19 vaccine is about to roll out around the world. It's called a protein subunit vaccine. Early on in the pandemic, many experts thought this was the kind of vaccine that would be most likely to succeed, and so far it hasn't. NPR's Joe Palca has this story about why it's taken so long for these vaccines to be ready for distribution and why they're still needed.
When Operation Warp Speed began spending billions of dollars to facilitate the development of a COVID vaccine, it chose 3 vaccine technologies to back: mRNA vaccines being developed by Pfizer and Moderna, viral vector vaccines like Johnson & Johnson, and protein subunit vaccines being made by Sanofi and Novavax. The first 2 technologies were successful, mRNA vaccines wildly successful, and there are now billions of vaccine doses in this country and around the world. A year ago, Novavax was confident its protein subunit vaccine would also be out there. Here's Greg Glenn, Novavax President of Research and Development, in an interview we did in September last year.
We have a massive number of people working on scaling up our vaccine. I am very optimistic. I think we'll have a lot of product, and we're talking about more than 2 billion doses in 2021.
But Glenn's optimism was misguided. A large study of the vaccine took longer to complete than was hoped, and the company ran into manufacturing problems. Sanofi also stumbled with its protein subunit vaccine.
I think we were assuming that the protein subunit vaccines would play a big role in accelerating development of the COVID vaccine.
Julie McElrath directs the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Division at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. McElrath says she and her colleagues' confidence came because there were already subunit vaccines on the market for infectious diseases. This kind of vaccine works by injecting people with a tiny portion of the virus. In the case of the COVID-19 vaccine, just the so-called spike protein. Protein subunit vaccines tend to be very stable, so they don't require freezers for storage. A regular refrigerator is adequate. This makes distributing the vaccine to low-resource countries much easier. McElrath is convinced that subunit vaccines can still play a role in combating the pandemic.
It's just that they're just a little further behind than the others.
It might seem that the Novavax vaccine is arriving too late to make a difference. Ali Elabedi is an immunologist at Washington University in St. Louis. He says you shouldn't think of the Novavax vaccine as a duplication of effort.
From a scientific perspective, it would be definitely great to have a subunit vaccine.
Elabedi primarily studies mRNA vaccines. He says these are new, and scientists are still learning their strengths and weaknesses. To do that, it would be useful to have a large group of people vaccinated with a more familiar vaccine for comparison.
Having multiple options is always a good idea.
That day appears to be coming. Large studies of the vaccine have shown that it works extremely well, and so far there are no safety concerns. Novavax has begun filing for emergency use authorization with various regulatory agencies. Sylvia Taylor is Vice President of Global Corporate Affairs and Investor Relations for Novavax.
We have filed for authorization all over the world, including in the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand.
These filings mean Novavax thinks it's licked its manufacturing problems, because getting an authorization requires convincing regulators you can reliably produce the vaccine. Taylor expects the company will seek emergency use authorization in this country early next year. She says to boost manufacturing capacity, the company has teamed up with several vaccine manufacturers, including the Serum Institute of India, the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines.
So we have a tremendous amount of confidence that with everything we have learned over the past year, as well as the expertise of all of our partners, that we'll be in a great position to produce over 2 billion doses in 2022.
That may sound familiar. Perhaps now it's achievable. Joe Palca, NPR News.
Support for NPR and the following presenting their new podcast, The Upload, The Rise of the Creator Economy. In every episode, host Brittany Luce speaks with exceptional creators who have turned their passions into full-time careers. Tap Listen Now to hear the story behind the channel See Jane Drill and how creator Leah Bolden turned her grit and hard work into a full-time job.
This year you can add. President Biden promises to help end the 7-year civil war in Yemen and ease the humanitarian crisis it's created. But that would involve U.S. pressure on Saudi Arabia, which has been blamed for escalating the war. NPR's Jackie Northam reports that new U.S. arms sales to Saudi Arabia raised doubts about Biden's efforts.
Within a month of taking office, President Biden laid out his foreign policy vision, which included a promise to end the prolonged conflict in Yemen.
This war has to end. And to underscore our commitment, we're ending all American support for offensive operations in the war in Yemen, including relevant arms sales.
The Biden administration thought cutting off some weapons sales would pressure the Saudis to make a deal with Houthi rebels, who are backed by Iran. But 10 months on, the war is still raging, and the Houthis are closing in on the last urban government stronghold, Marib. Peter Salisbury is with the International Crisis Group.
The government which the Saudis back is in collapse, and the Houthis sense victory, so there's very little incentive for them to come to the table while they're winning on the ground.
That's forced the Biden administration to rethink weapons sales to Saudi Arabia amid its fight against the Houthis. The administration announced this month it would sell the kingdom $650 million worth of air-to-air missiles, which it considers defensive weapons.
Ultimately, we're talking about taking out UAVs and other weapons that are being launched against the Saudis, and this is how they will intercept them.
That's Jonathan Schanzer, a Gulf specialist at the Federation for the Defense of Democracies. He says the missiles can intercept attacks that have put U.S. forces inside Saudi Arabia at risk.
So they're framing this as defending American assets in the region, but very clearly also a response to the uptick in attacks by the Houthis.
But for many Yemenis, the arms sale to Saudi Arabia means the war, which is causing widespread famine, will drag on. Jihan Hakim is chair of the San Francisco-based Yemeni Alliance Committee. She sees Biden as backpedaling from his promise.
I can't understand a strategy that can justify the killing of hundreds of thousands of civilians. Because without the support of the U.S., when it comes to arms sales, logistical support, Saudi Arabia cannot continue its aggression on Yemen.
The U.S. named Tim Lender King a special envoy for Yemen to help reach a peace settlement, but he has struggled to make progress. The International Crisis Group Salisbury says the administration is under pressure to pull the plug on Yemen.
There is definitely a group of people in Washington in general, and even I'd say within the White House, who thinks the best thing to do in Yemen is get the Saudis to get out of the conflict, let it take its course, and no longer make the US culpable in its worst excesses.
But Salisbury says that could possibly prolong the fighting. In the meantime, the suffering in Yemen continues. Afra Nasser is a Yemen researcher with Human Rights Watch.
In my assessment, there is no one single household in Yemen that is not affected by the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Every house in Yemen is facing hunger, extremely economic hardships, unimaginable security issues.
Nasser, who is originally from Yemen, is disappointed with Biden's inability to live up to his promise and stop the war. But she adds that as a human rights advocate, you can't lose hope. Jackie Northam, NPR News.
It's Wednesday, November 24th, the day before Thanksgiving. I'm Nick Roman with the afternoon edition of the LA Report from KPCC and LAist. Here are the stories we've been following today. Bobby Cagle is stepping down as the director of LA County DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services. Cagle leaves after a series of high-profile child abuse cases, among them the case of 4-year-old Noah Quattro. He died 2 years ago. His parents were charged with torture and murder. Social workers did not remove Noah from his home despite evidence of abuse. Bobby Cagle backed that decision. He was known for backing his social workers.
And he actually didn't emerge too frequently to answer questions about how they may have failed.
That's Garrett Thorolf with the investigative reporting program at UC Berkeley. He covered DCFS for years with the LA Times. Thorolf says Cagle also leaves as DCFS struggles with a pattern of racial disparities in investigations, something he says the next director is going to have to deal with.
We know that low-risk children who go through investigations that are unnecessary tend to be disproportionately black.
Bobby Cagle sent an email to county supervisors that says he will assure an efficient and effective transition in leadership at DCFS. Well, thanks to vaccines, the pandemic has eased up for this year's Thanksgiving holiday weekend. That's the good news. Bad news is driving over the hills and through the woods to Grandma's house is going to cost you more. Gas prices in Southern California are at a record high. Here's KPCC's Julie Paskin.
It can be hard to imagine an oil shortage while driving past LA's many bobbing oil pumps, but the spike in gas prices have to do with global production slowing down during the pandemic and not yet catching up with demand as the economy rebounds. The Biden administration has released 50 million barrels of oil from the Federal Strategic Reserve, aiming to lower gas prices. Jonathan Elkind with the Center for Global Energy Policy at Columbia University says that move has already resulted in a 9% drop in oil prices per barrel in the last month.
That's not trivial, and so that should work its way through pump prices, and already the American consumer will be in a better position than he or she otherwise would have been.
But Elkind notes releasing more oil from the reserves is just a temporary fix.
I look and see what happens in the next couple of months, and I think that they will return to production increases.
President Biden has said he is willing to take more oil out of the reserves if needed. I'm Julia Paskin.
Now, if you're flying instead of driving this holiday weekend, you already know that LAX is much busier this year than last. But Keith Montgomery at LAX says the airport can handle the surge in travelers.
Staffing is fine here so far. So both the TSA, the airlines, and the airport, everybody is aware of these peaks that we see with the holiday travel cycles, and everybody staffs up as the best that they can. Now, of course, there are still labor shortages. So things like our concessions, they may have reduced hours because it is simply too hard to hire people right now. There is definitely a noticeable shortage in the number of staff for some of those places like the coffee shop, but we're doing the best we can to make sure that everybody gets their latte before they travel.
Keith Montgomery at LAX, he says it doesn't look like there are any significant weather-related delays or cancellations in the holiday weekend forecast, but he says check to make sure your flight's on time before you head to LAX. If you're not traveling, you will have an uninvited guest for Thanksgiving dinner. The Santa Ana winds, they're starting to blow. We've got a high wind warning through tomorrow afternoon, a red flag warning now through Friday. And meteorologist David Bruno with the National Weather Service says, you know what that means.
Any spark can ignite a fire with the brush that's dry and with the strong winds. I mean, we expect relative humidities on Thursday to drop to between 2 and 8%. I mean, that's really, really dry. If a fire does start, heaven forbid, then that would cause big problems because it could spread really quickly.
By the way, the red flag warning runs from Ventura all the way to the Mexican border. And finally, KPCC Speed XO has been checking in with homeless Angelinos across the city to find out how they're spending Thanksgiving. She met a woman who volunteers and lives at Skid Row's Union Rescue Mission.
Jody Cobb has lived at the Skid Row Mission for 3 years, but this is the first time she's celebrating Thanksgiving there. She wanted to help out with the festivities,
but for this year they're not requiring any of us to volunteer, so I'm so excited to have my first Thanksgiving here at the URM, being healed and being really thankful with the family that I have in my life here at the URM.
Jody's vegan, so she doesn't get to dig into the entire Thanksgiving meal, but says it's her blessing and enjoyment to watch others do so.
If that's what I get out of it, that's okay. I'm so thankful.
I'm Phoenix So.
Thanks for listening to the LA Report. I'm Nick Roman. Join us next time for another LA Report.
Some are drawn by citizen commissions, others are crafted by elected officials. Ohio's new congressional map was drawn by Republican lawmakers, and the result is drawing accusations of gerrymandering. Ohio Public Radio's Andy Chow reports.
Voter rights advocates are standing in a State House committee room, huddled around an easel holding a large printout of Ohio's new congressional district map.
There's no reason for Hamilton County to be split into 3 districts.
They're examining the different splits and unique curves that divvy up the state in what will become 15 new congressional seats.
Like here's like a little bunny rabbit, who's going forward.
Jen Miller with the League of Women Voters of Ohio says the map was drawn by Republicans for Republicans.
Maps don't look like this unless you're trying to secure a partisan outcome rather than fairly representing voters.
Ohio's new congressional map has 12 seats that either heavily favor or lean in favor of Republicans. That's 80% of the districts in a state that voted for Republican Donald Trump, with 53% of the vote in 2020. There are 6 districts where the margin between Republican voters and Democratic voters is less than 10%. But of those 6 districts, 5 still lean in favor of the GOP. Republican State Senator Rob McCauley says their map is actually an improvement on the old one because it creates more competitive districts.
I don't think we should go into any map-making process and say, okay, we have to have 7 that are guaranteed to be one party and 8 guaranteed to be the other party. I don't think that's what the voters wanted.
Republicans also say the map keeps most of Ohio's largest cities whole and splits fewer counties. But in a heated floor debate, Ohio House Democrats, such as Representative Stephanie House, chided state Republicans, saying this map ignores the anti-gerrymandering reforms passed by voters 3 years ago.
So let's be for real. Like, that is not what people voted for one day in 2018. They deserve better. We need to do better, and we need to absolutely vote this mess down.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is the eyes of the beholder.
But Republican Representative Bill Seitz says Ohio has been trending red, and that elections depend on any given candidate.
We have followed the Constitution. We have done our duty. We have listened to the people. Listening to them does not mean agreeing with them.
The new map potentially tips the scales of power in the U.S. House of Representatives by eliminating 2 safe Democratic seats and creating a possible 13th district that's winnable for the GOP. Ohio has become the latest state to finalize a new map. Democrats in states such as Illinois and Maryland have been criticized for drawing maps that favor their party. But the new maps around the country have, so far, resulted in more safe districts for Republicans. The League of Women Voters' Jen Miller says they're not going down without a fight.
This map is unconstitutional because it slices and dices communities purely to unduly favor one political party.
A national Democratic group has already filed a lawsuit against the map in the Ohio Supreme Court, with other organizations planning to follow. For NPR News, I'm Andy Chow in Columbus.
This Thanksgiving, consumers are feeling the sting of inflation and higher gas prices and shipping delays. Now, politically, the Biden administration wants you to remember how much better things are than last year's Thanksgiving lockdown that was pre-vaccine. But Republicans, well, they're banking that by next Thanksgiving they will be preparing to take control of Congress. Let's do a politics check-in with Rick Klein. He's political director at ABC News. Hi, Rick.
Hey, great to be with you.
Great to have you. Now, this week, President Biden released oil from the strategic reserves to try to nudge down gas prices. But on Tuesday, he acknowledged it's not going to be easy.
And while our combined actions will not solve the problem of high gas prices overnight, it will make a difference. It will take time, but before long, you should see the price of gas drop where you fill up your tank.
Now, Biden has also renominated Jay Powell to run the Federal Reserve, which has inflation on its mind. So, Rick, is challenge number 1 for the White House prices, inflation?
I think it's challenge numbers 1, 2, and 3 right now, politically, because you can do only so much when it comes to spinning or explaining what's going on in the economy. It's where people feel it. And I think this decision around the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is a very rare move to use that reserve, particularly to address gas prices. And I think it's an acknowledgement of the very rough politics around gas prices, around inflation. Even if the economy is booming through other metrics, through unemployment, through the stock market, if people don't feel it because they're filling up their pumps and it costs more, or it's more to get a gallon of milk, that is an almost impossible political problem to solve.
Well, the messaging from the White House is to talk about its big infrastructure bill, and Joe Biden is also talking about his big social spending plan, now trying to move through the Senate, investing in child care, pre-K education, Medicare, climate change. I mean, if it passes, you take the 2 of these, this could bring generational change, and yet his poll numbers are where they are. Why?
Well, I think there's a few things going on. One is that this generational change needs to impact people inside of a year if the midterm elections are your goal. So you're talking about very long-term investments and very short-term political problems. There's also, I think, been a significant disconnect between the goals that are laid out in these bills and the way that people actually feel them in their lives. And I think that's reflected in polling where a large majority of people are saying that they don't feel like President Biden has made good on his promises. I think it's in part because of the legislative infighting. A lot of the stories have been about the price tag or about what's not in the bill. And the view among Democrats is once they get to the other side of both of these bills, they can talk about what's in them and sell them politically. The challenge, though, is that so much of the die might be cast already, where people already have a sense of what works and what doesn't and what works for them. And there's a very small minority of people who feel like these bills actually will make their lives better. And because they are long-term investments, you just may not have an alignment of the political benefits and the policy benefits that Democrats want and need.
Yeah, well, and as you say, if you're playing catch-up on the narrative, that's really tough. So now we're a year away from the midterm elections. How worried do you think the Democrats are?
Terrified. I mean, look, there's no way to look at this and see a good situation, whether it's history, whether it's the economy and gas prices, perceptions around it, whether it's the president's approval rating, whether it's the approval rating of Republicans, who by some metrics have a larger favorability than they have in terms of a congressional takeover than any time in decades. Almost any way this lines up, and this looks like it could be a disastrous year for Democrats. Yes, they've got time, but the question about how you can redefine the storylines, the narrative that connects to people's lives in a midterm election year, very, very difficult. And I think that a lot of Democrats are eager to talk more about President Trump, more about January 6th. All of those could help around the margins, but in terms of framing this next year ahead, short of some unexpected big outside development, if this election is about the economy and stewardship of it and just the basic competence of governance, under all of those areas, Democrats are going to have their work cut out for them just to hold ground in the House and Senate.
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump on the Republican side. Some observers see a couple things happening. They see Wyoming, where pro-Trump Republicans voted to boot out of the party Liz Cheney. She's a conservative Republican, but perhaps not conservative enough. And in the state of Virginia, where I live, Glenn Youngkin won. He's the governor-elect now, and he got a lot of Trump voters in the southern part of the state to come to the polls on issues like schools and race. There's an argument out there that this is still Donald Trump's party. Do you buy that?
It is Donald Trump's party. Now, that isn't to say that there aren't Republicans who might try to survive with him at arm's length, and Glenn Youngkin in Virginia is actually an example of that. The question is, how do you try to adapt Trumpism for your own purposes as a Republican? And so far, that means that you're a lot Trumpier than you are not, no matter where you are or who you are running as a Republican in 2022, 2024. Now, that isn't to say that there isn't a downside. There's going to be, and there's already been some primaries where he's involved, where he may be getting behind the less electable of the candidates, someone with more scandal in their past. And obviously, the pushing of the big lie is a medium and longer term problem, maybe for the future of democracy. That all said, Trump himself is an ascendant figure inside the Republican Party. I thought there was something telling the Republican National Committee Chair, Ronna McDaniel. I asked her recently about President Trump's reported threats to leave the party, and she demurred on all of that, but she said, look, all that matters is that he is still part of the Republican Party, and yes, if he bolted the party, we would lose.
All right, Rick Klein, political director at ABC News. Rick, always good to have you. Thanks.
Hey, thank you.
what you do.